So, who is actually in charge of your life? Like, I want you to really think about that for a second. When you wake up, face the day, are you the main character of your own story, making deliberate choices? Or honestly, do you kind of feel like a powerless victim, just getting pushed around by the daily grind, bad luck, or maybe other people's endless demands? Look, it's a heavy question, I know, but how you answer it, it literally dictates absolutely everything about your mental well being.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into an absolutely game-changing framework for reclaiming your personal agency and building bulletproof mental resilience. We're going to walk through this brilliant model that will completely transform how you interact with the world, and we're taking it from the inside out, meaning we'll start deep inside your own psychology and work our way right out to your everyday conversations. Here's our quick roadmap for how we're going to do this. First, we'll hit the core, which is all about your locus of control. Then we move to the mind, looking at stoic perception. And finally, we'll build the shield, focusing on interpersonal boundaries.
All right, let's jump right into part one, the core, focusing on the locus of control.
Way back in 1954, psychologist Julian Rotter formalized this amazing concept that basically puts human mindset on a spectrum. So on one end, you've got the internal locus of control. These are the folks who believe that their choices, their effort, and their discipline directly cause the events in their lives. They own it. But on the exact opposite side, you have the external locus. People here believe that luck, chance, the economy, or just authority figures dictate their fate. It really forces you to ask yourself a profound question. Do I happen to the world, or does the world just happen to me? Let's look at this in action with a really relatable scenario using what we call a micro shift. Imagine failing an exam. Someone with an external locus of control, they immediately look outward, right? They'll say, oh, the test was totally rigged, or the professor was just too harsh, or I just have terrible luck. They externalize the failure, which ironically leaves them completely powerless to fix it. But a person with an internal locus, they take proactive responsibility. They'll admit, you know what, I didn't study enough, or I really messed up my time management. And yeah, sure, that stings a bit more in the short term, but it gives them the absolute power to change the outcome for next time. It's a massive shift. Moving right along to part two, the mind and the power of stoic perception. Because listen, here is the harsh reality. Even if you have an incredibly strong internal locus of control, unfair and unexpected things are still going to happen to you. It's inevitable. So to process them, we're grounding ourselves in Ryan Holiday's outstanding work on the ancient art of Stoicism. The core premise here isn't just about surviving unavoidable hurdles, it's about actually transforming them into absolute advantages. It's like that old Zen proverb says, the obstacle on the path becomes the path. I actually want to pause for a second and just let the gravity of this ancient wisdom from Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius really sink in. He said, remove the complaint, I was harmed, and the harm is removed. I mean, think about how incredibly powerful that is. The objective event itself doesn't inherently hurt your mind. It's your subjective perception of the event, the story you tell yourself about it, that actually causes the suffering. To really pull this off, we have to separate how we view the world into two different lenses. First, we need to rely on the observing eye. This is purely objective and factual. It just sees reality exactly as it is, without adding a bunch of drama. The enemy of resilience, though, is the perceiving eye. That's the lens that tacks on all that paralyzing emotional baggage, false narratives, and panic. Think about an animal in the wild, right? It perceives a threat and blindly darts into traffic out of pure instinctual panic. But as humans, we literally have the power to override that. We can stop, observe the cold hard facts logically, and just strip away all those crippling emotions. For some real-world historical proof of this, check out the incredible story of champion boxer Reuben "Hurricane" Carter. At the absolute peak of his career, he was wrongfully accused of a triple homicide and handed 3 life sentences. Just like that, he went from wealth and fame to a tiny prison cell. He lost every single ounce of his physical freedom. But here's the crazy part. Carter flat out refused to surrender his internal freedom. He told the guards, I am and will never be powerless. He refused to wear the inmate uniform, he wouldn't eat the prison food, and he didn't even seek parole. Instead, he channeled every ounce of his energy into studying law and philosophy. He didn't just survive in there. He literally transformed his unjust imprisonment into this incredibly empowering workshop for his mind. And this quote from psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl captures that exact spirit so perfectly. The human being does not simply exist, but always decides what his existence will be, what he will become in the next moment.
That just drives home the ultimate microshift, doesn't it? Our viewpoint, even in total, absolute devastation, is what actually creates our reality.
To see what this extreme resilience looks like in action over time, let's look at the career of legendary baseball pitcher Tommy John. Back in 1974, his pitching arm suffered a catastrophic injury. I mean, doctors literally called it a dead arm. His career should have been completely over right then and there. But John asked if there was any chance, any at all. They offered him an experimental surgery with a 1 in 100 chance of success. Because that 1% was in his control, he took it. He focused strictly on the daily rehab he could control and completely ignored the 99% probability of failure. And the result? He went on to pitch for 13 more seasons and won 164 more games, cementing a 26-season career that most people thought was humanly impossible. Now that is resilience.
So, the crucial takeaway here is captured in this fantastic Greek Stoic principle, ta ephemen. It simply means what is up to us. If you want to be highly resilient, you have to ruthlessly categorize your problems. You have to entirely abandon stressing over what you can't change, the economy, the weather, what other people think of you, and instead pour 100% of your energy exclusively into your own choices, your own creativity, and your own actions. All right, that brings us to our third and final part, the shield, focusing on interpersonal boundaries. Taking this incredibly empowering internal foundation we've just been building, let's step outward into the real world, into our physical relationships. To do this, we're going to draw on an awesome framework developed by therapist Marjorie Rose. She identifies 6 specific types of boundaries. And I want you to think of these not as rigid walls meant to keep people out, but as a protective shield that preserves your mental health and your energy in daily life. Because without these boundaries, your internal peace is just constantly at the mercy of everyone else. So let's break these down into some common violations and give you some exact scripted responses you can literally use today. For a physical boundary violation, say someone makes an unsolicited comment on your weight or appearance, the empowered response is super direct. You just say, I don't like when you comment on my appearance. For an emotional violation, like maybe a friend is constantly using you as an unpaid therapist when you're already completely drained, you do a micro shift from people-pleasing to self-protection. Try saying, I'd love to help, but I really have my own problems right now. And for time, look, if someone is always showing up late, you don't just sit there and seethe in silence. You tell them, please let me know if you'll be late next time. Boom. You are taking back control of the interaction.
Now let's look at the remaining 3. When someone crosses a communication boundary by yelling or talking down to you, remember, you do not have to absorb that anger. You just calmly state, please do not speak to me in that tone. For mental boundaries, when someone aggressively tries to force their opinion on you, which, let's be honest, is deeply frustrating, right? You neutralize it with a simple, it is okay if we do not agree. And finally, relational boundaries. If a colleague is gossiping about your personal life, you have every right to draw a firm line in the sand. You just tell them, I don't appreciate you telling others about my private life. Think of these scripts as your personal armor. They allow you to maintain that stoic control during professional or social conflicts, completely without losing your inner peace.
Okay, let's quickly synthesize everything we've covered in this explainer into 3 highly actionable steps. Number 1, internalize your locus of control. Stop blaming the outside world and take real responsibility for your own responses. Number 2, observe obstacles objectively. Drop the emotional baggage and focus only on what is actually up to you. And number 3, defend your hard-won peace with firm, clearly communicated interpersonal boundaries. Guys, this right here is your ultimate toolkit to handle life's relentless pressures. I want to leave you with the exact same question we started with, but I'm betting you have the tools to answer it a little differently now. Will you happen to the world today, or will you let the world happen to you? The choice, as always, is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now get out there and take some serious agency over your life.